Welcome to Beyond the Signboard, where you get the opportunity to learn all there is to know about your real estate journey from professionals who are passionate about property. I'm Amy Bennett, your host, and I look forward to providing you with education, inspiration, and a behind-the-scenes look at the world of real estate. Hi everyone, I am Amy Bennett, delighted to be joined today by Rebecca Robinson, who is the Principal Solicitor at Coast and Country Legal. Welcome, Beck.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure. I'm so excited for us to catch up. We've had a little catch up off air about what we're going to chat through, and it's funny, isn't it, in life? You realise, gosh, we all journey through the same life, and commonalities and everything is just amazing.
Absolutely.
Here at our office in Caloundra, we are not far from where you started your first career.
Yes, I did. I started on reception at Tim Williams Property Lawyers in Caloundra. That was a long time ago now, and it's moved from there.
Yeah, amazing. And before that, KFC?
KFC, yes, just basically next door.
Literally. Tell us, it's just interesting, isn't it? I mean, I hear so much about, like fast food and things like that, like that McDonald's is such a good training ground. What was the shift at KFC like in Caloundra?
It was always busy.
Yes.
Always very busy, always on your toes.
Yes.
Didn't stop. It didn't matter whether you were on front counter, restaurant tidy up, drive-through, stocking. It was always on the go.
Busy. And am I right in saying, I never knew this for so long, that the chicken's actually cooked there?
Yes.
Yeah, I had no idea of that. Isn't it funny?
Yes. Still don't know what the secret herbs and spices are, though.
I should have thought to ask that. It's funny, isn't it? I was chatting to someone previously in the podcast that was from Domino's, and we were just chatting about, like the behind the scenes. I love, learning about that and how businesses work. Wonderful. Well, look, a long way from KFC to where you are now as the owner of Coast and Country Legal. Love you to share your journey. Obviously, it's a career that you've been really passionate about, but just let us know how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so as I said, starting as a receptionist for Tim Williams, I moved through the office there into conveyancing. Found that I had a real keen interest in that sphere.
Yes.
So I continued on with that then became the head of the conveyancing department for the firm and overseeing the other girls in their day-to-day transactions. I then had my children.
Beautiful. Three children?
3 children,
yes.
Yep. So it did put my study as a lawyer on hold.
Yes.
But when I was able to do that, I was working part-time, had moved from the coast at that point in time, working and studying to finally get my law degree.
Well done. It's a big undertaking, right?
It was a big undertaking, and there were some times during that period of my life where I'm like, what am I doing? I can't do this anymore. But looking back now, it's I've been able to achieve what I set out to do and exceed.
Amazing.
So it's been really a great journey, and I'm so proud of myself for achieving that.
Oh, absolutely incredible. I mean, look, how many years it was that sort of process?
Yeah, so it was 4.5 years it took me because I was studying externally, so I was able to do the 3 different semesters. So basically I studied over Christmas each year to condense it down.
Well done.
Get it done as quickly as I could.
And then joined Tim's team yet again?
When I moved back to the sunny coast, Tim's like, come back and work for me. So I did. Fortunately, he opened a position for me there. Shortly after that, he decided that he was going to look at retiring and offered for me to buy the practice. So I acquired Tim Williams Property Lawyers, set up, and we've now rebranded to Coast and Country Legal.
Amazing. You've got a beautiful office in Maroochydore.
Yes.
Which is amazing. So what a journey just within the industry to be able to go from that. And obviously, it was such a testament to you that Tim asked you back, but also as the custodian of the business as well, which is amazing. So tell us about your business and what it offers clients.
Yeah, so we look after all aspects of property law and estate laws. So things from buying a residential property through to property subdivision, if there's property being transferred between families or superannuation, so anything to do with property.
That's your real, and has that always been your niche and interest?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing.
Yes, yep. And then that sits alongside estate law, which is another one of my passions. So it's estate planning, so all your wills, power of attorney documents, and then when somebody passes away, being able to finalise the estate and the assets of the estate for the family.
It's a huge component, and I know that we've spoken about that a lot. We've had the pleasure to meet actually through your BNI networking group, which you're a really active member of. And, I know that's something that you're really passionate about. You volunteered your time to educate beautiful clients at my events when we have a downsizing seminar, and just the importance of having these documents in place, reviewing them and what's available. What's, I guess, the split between property and estates within your business?
Yep. So I guess the way they cross over there would be, in the event that somebody is needing to go into aged care.
Yes.
And they're unable to sign documents on their own anymore. So they have an attorney, so sometimes a family member, it doesn't necessarily have to be, that is able to make those decisions, sign the documents and help them into that transition of their life, and then be able to sell the home and things like that as well.
It's a huge process, isn't it, as well? And I know that's something that we've really bonded over, because that is such a, I guess, a niche part of what I do, and helping people navigate that. And also it is really overwhelming, isn't it, as well, for people to navigate, so many big changes all at once.
Yeah.
You have an amazing team. I'd love you to share a little bit about them.
Yeah. So we're a team of 4, so myself and my wonderful assistants. So we have reception. Kai is the friendly face that you see.
He sure
and hear,
is. Yes.
When you first contact us.
Yes.
He's wonderful. He always goes above and beyond to help make sure everyone's comfortable and understands what's going on, and have everything that they need for us to be able to do the smooth transaction for them. Sam is our conveyancing paralegal, so she looks after all the day-to-day running of matters.
Yes.
She's very diligent, making sure that everything is in place, that there's no delays, that the banks are ready to go, that conditions are met when they need to be, and that sort of thing. And then Michelle, she works in the background, busily works in the background, doing all our processing stuff, all our letters and things that need to be done, keeping on track and doing our file checks to make sure that we've got everything that we need to, so when Sam's getting to that settlement preparation time, everything's there.
Ready to go. It's an incredible, well-oiled machine, I have no doubt. So many components, I guess, and we'll talk about, I guess, a day in the life, because, I have the privilege of seeing, I guess, one component of what you do as representing, my clients in the sale or the purchases as well. So we'll chat about, I guess, those matters. But I guess the most important thing with your team is that it sounds like everybody's got a defined role and they're all integrated and supporting each other.
Definitely. Yeah. However, in saying that, because we are a small niche group, we do all know what's happening with each matter. So if somebody is away, sick, or whatever the case may be, something unforeseen happens, there is somebody that can step into that person's role in the day so that the clients aren't disrupted.
That's amazing.
Continue to flow.
Incredible, because I think probably the most important thing that I've observed over the years is that it is such time-sensitive matter, isn't it? So
absolutely.
Chat through a day, but I think most importantly, let's talk about your afternoons, because that's really the busiest time in your practice, right?
It is, yes. It's when all those unforeseen, unexpected things, if they're going to arise, will arise, and they'll all arise at once.
Yeah.
So generally settlements are between that 2 and 4. We do try and get them earlier. It just depends on banks and things. It's not always possible. So if we have a busy day of settlements that are all happening between 2 and 4, we need to make sure they're all ready to go. So the morning of settlement, we check in to make sure the client's all ready to go, if they've got any last-minute things. Sometimes we don't have settlement calculations and things finalised because For example, maybe a payout figure hasn't been uploaded into the workspace yet, or funds haven't landed in an account where they should have, ready for settlement. So we address all those things first. So just do a check to make sure everything is where it should be. Then we move on to those settlement authorities. So making sure the client's got the settlement authorities or the calculations, they've signed them, they've returned them, we're ready to go.
Let's chat through as well, because it's really interesting because we're so deep in this, right? We do it every day. But I thought it's probably important to explain how a settlement occurs sort of online now. But then let's go back to what it used to be too, because I think it's really interesting for our listeners about kind of what their personal experience is. And certainly, you and I, like a transaction doesn't happen for a client, every day. It does for us, every day. But I'd love you just to explain that in a bit more detail about what that kind of occurs nowadays.
Settlements now, yes. So with the electronic settlements with PEXA, it is far more smooth transaction than it used to be on the settlement date. So once upon a time, as with the paper settlements, there were so many components that all had to come together. So you've got your paper transfers that all needed to be signed. You had to get checks from the bank. You had to get checks from the clients if they were contributing funds as well. Yes. Then you all attended
physically
at the one place at the one time.
Yes.
If one of those checks were incorrect, if one of the documents were incorrect, it didn't settle. It was once again between that 2 and 4 settlement period generally. And if things went wrong, they went really, really wrong, and it was very, very difficult to rectify that situation in such a short period of time.
And I think it's interesting to note in that as well, because, we know the ramifications of that. So, I always say to people that's somebody sitting with a removal truck on a driveway, isn't it? The flow-on effect and everything.
That's exactly right, yes.
I remember the checks being posted into our office, sort of balance of commission, and then going up to the bank and taking a photograph of the check and inputting the information. And so now it's instantaneous, right, through PEXA?
Yes, yep. So it's all electronic now. So it's the same documents, but it's all electronic. So we can see those documents from the get-go. We're not waiting for documents to be returned to check if they've been signed correctly, to make sure they haven't been damaged in the post. We can see the what we call, it's called the destination lines, so where the money needs to go. So if there's money outstanding for rates, for example, on a property, we can see those destination lines being put in there straight away as it happens. So if there is something that's been uploaded incorrectly, we can identify that relatively quickly.
That's great. And it's interesting you say that, because rates and water are that's part of the settlement. That's probably something a lot of people don't realise as well.
Yeah. So because they're invoices that are for a extended period of time. So here on the Sunshine Coast, your rates are 6 monthly, for example. If you have a settlement in between that time, the seller may have paid for the full 6 months. So we make that adjustment in the settlement statement, so the seller is being refunded for the difference between the settlement date and the end of that rating period. Some people haven't paid their rates, so obviously the buyers don't want to take that liability on, or not required to take that liability on. So we make sure that's paid at settlement.
Amazing. And there's so many components, isn't it? And we won't sort of go down the pathway of legislation and things like that. I'm sure you're grateful for that. But look, there's a lot of components. I mean, smoke alarms has been a huge thing. On the podcast, we've had a smoke alarm company come and explain that legislation. But there's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot, isn't there, in, I guess, every component. And I know we've just really drilled down on settlement there, but ultimately, like if we took it way back to, contract reviews is obviously something your team does. But also I just wanted you to probably explain as well about representing either the seller or the buyer. And how that works with another solicitor firm on the other side, and kind of chat through that, because I think that's probably a lot of people, just presume that you're working for both sides.
Yeah, so we can't act for both parties. It is a conflict.
Yes.
So you can't act in the best interests of both people.
Correct.
In the one transaction. So we act for either the seller or the buyer. In Queensland at the moment, as it presently stands today, it is buyer beware. So the buyer needs to do the body corporate inspections,
yes.
building and pest inspections,
yes.
searches for any concerns that they may have on the property. There's very limited requirement on the seller as it stands at the moment to disclose under the standard contract today.
Yeah. So when you're listening to this, it'll be interesting to see because that is coming, right?
It is coming. Yeah. Watch this space.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Yes. So, if we're acting for a buyer, we're very much on the front foot in being identifying potential issues that we see may arise in the location that they're buying, the age of the building can sometimes play a role.
So you're advocating for them to, I guess, essentially, have a look at these things a little bit deeper.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's a lot more involved when you're buying the property as opposed to when you're selling as it currently stands.
So representing the seller is really the process of getting them prepared, making sure, again, there is still things as well, isn't there, that paperwork that they require and need and everything like that. With regards to, and I said to you I was going to ask this question because I think one of the myths or misconceptions I hear all the time is solicitor versus conveyancer. Not verse, but the differences with it. I would love you to explain those two roles, both very important, and essentially understanding whether you can engage both and what that process looks like.
Yeah, so in Queensland, a conveyancer can't act without a solicitor. So in Queensland, as it currently stands, a law firm as a solicitor has to have a practicing certificate to practice. A solicitor has a law degree and is admitted with the Law Society as a practicing solicitor. A conveyancer doesn't have that same qualification. So a conveyancing paralegal, they look after the day-to-day transactions of a file and they are able to work autonomously on that matter with limited guidance and direction from the solicitor. But ultimately it falls on the solicitor to ensure everything is correct, that everything's signed off and it's all legally binding.
So you're a busy lady.
Yes.
But you've got great support.
I do.
Yeah. Look, it's really good to give that clarification because an example you gave me off air and what I asked about is essentially that conveyancer can provide, I guess, options around something, but no legal advice.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So we know what you love about your team. It's very evident. But if not what you're doing now, is there anything else that you would do as a career?
Probably not.
I love that.
It's all I've ever wanted to do. I did have an interest in law when I was in my senior schooling.
Amazing.
So I did actually do some work experience with Tim during my senior schooling, which is how I was offered the position when I finished school. And that kind of cemented that interest for me.
That's amazing.
In this area. So, no, there's not really anything that
I love that. I did, in high school, I did legal studies. So I had an interest in it, but obviously just didn't have the passion that you have and the commitment to study for so long. It's just amazing to have guests on, and that's ultimately why you're here, is because you do have a passion and your care factor is so phenomenal for what you do, and also your willingness to share information. I think it's so important, especially when people are navigating, whether it's a passing of a loved one or selling a property after, a huge number of years. Like I said, we kind of, we do it every day. So sometimes it's hard, isn't it, to realise how, huge this process is for everyone.
And for most people, it only happens once in their lifetime.
That's right.
So it's not something that they're doing every day. And it is overwhelming. There is so much paperwork and so much to go through and so many different aspects to consider. We do try and make it as smooth sailing as we can for them to help navigate through the difficulties.
Oh, look, and it's an absolute credit to you. Like I said, it is such a big journey. We are going to chat a little bit more about Rebecca outside of your world of being a solicitor. Beck, what would be your dream holiday destination in the world?
Well, I was fortunate enough only last year to tick off one of my big bucket lists was Vietnam.
Amazing.
So, yes, that was definitely on top of my list. So I was able to achieve that, which was fantastic. Next on the list is Canada.
Awesome. I've never been. Tell me what, Canada in the winter?
Canada in the winter. I've always wanted to do a white Christmas.
Yes.
My daughter is actually going over there on a working holiday. So I might just have to go and visit.
Amazing. Oh, that would be incredible. Look, you hear nothing but great things about Canada. And we've got so much to explore, haven't we, in the world? Especially us local Sunshine Coast gals.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask your favourite meal and drink, but I'm wondering if it's Vietnamese.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Well, I don't really have one favourite, actually. Yeah, I couldn't really answer one.
When you were in Vietnam, your favourite meal, do you remember something that jumped out or that you enjoyed?
We had a lot of quite authentic Vietnamese food. There's not really one that I enjoyed over any other. What I didn't like was their little insects and things.
Yes. And that was like what, an entree?
We went to this one place and it had this authentic food on the table, and it was all like not appetising at all. But they thought that they were doing us a favour because it was all their delicacies.
Yes, absolutely.
And, it wasn't very nice.
It takes me back to Borneo. I went with my mum about 10 years ago, and I'm a bit of a little bit of a weirdo. I don't eat meat on bones. Like, it sounds really silly. And so we were the same. We went into, a beautiful village, and we sat on the floor and they prepared all of this meal, and it was all sorts of things, feet and bones and everything like that. And I was always brought up by my mum, you eat everything that's given to you. Yes. And everything like that. So it is incredible, isn't it? And so many different cultures and things like that in the world. That is hilarious. Do you still eat KFC?
Not a lot. I don't mind it every now and then. My children could try and convince me to get KFC for them every other day.
Yes.
But yes, it's not on the top of my list.
It's funny because our office is literally 2 doors down from the KFC that you worked at, and especially I think it's on the Tuesday night, there must be some kind of chicken special, and you get the most beautiful, like this swath of chicken that comes through. Yes. And so every time I smell it, I'm like, it must be Tuesday. Oh, that is amazing. Beck, I just love working with you, your passion for property, and also helping people navigate. Before we sort of close off, I'd love for you just to probably share a little bit of advice, and we've spoke about property, but more so on the estate and will space. And I guess, the importance of getting your affairs in order. If you've got a few minutes to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is really important, and it is one of those things that is on everyone's list, but things that they have to do, but never a priority.
Guilty.
And it can make things so much more difficult for your loved ones in trying to finalise. It can cause lots of delays and expense in having to finalise. So something is better than nothing. If you feel that you would, you can get kits from the post office.
Yes.
And you can fill those out.
Yep.
Something is better than nothing. We can work from there. In saying that, it is important, though, that you do get someone to look over it once you have completed it.
Yep.
Because if it's not signed correctly, sometimes things as simple as using a different pen can impact the validity of a will.
Yeah, wow.
So there's nothing wrong with that form, but, definitely get it checked.
And I think one thing, like when we were both speaking at the downsizing workshop that we did, is it's people's reluctance to think about that, isn't it? I know that's really difficult for people to comprehend, or I guess we don't want that day to come. And that was really common, not just with the estates, but also people thinking about aged care and things like that. We also just spoke about off air is that having somebody to act on your behalf as well. Is that something you can sort of share about in appointing somebody to help you with matters, if you're not able to yourself?
Yeah, so that's an enduring power of attorney. So that's in effect while you're alive.
Yes.
So it enables somebody to make decisions for you on your behalf. It can start immediately, but predominantly it should be when you're unable to make decisions on your own. So if you can't do it, then there's somebody else that can do it.
Amazing.
On your behalf.
Yeah, incredible. Look, you are an absolute wealth of knowledge. You are always my go-to gal, and you're always so wonderful and gracious with your time and knowledge. I think the most important thing for people to reiterate is essentially to reach out, if people are starting to look at selling or they're looking at their purchasing journey, appoint somebody to be able to help you. That's probably the thing that I would advise listeners, if you're starting a property journey, is make sure that you've got everybody in your corner. I can only imagine that you would recommend a buyer, you can speak to them and give them that forewarning of what to look out for.
Yep. And we do offer that. If they are thinking of buying or selling, we can have a chat with them so they know what to expect, and it's not when the time comes, it does happen relatively quickly. So if you can be prepared and understand the process from the onset, it can make it easier to navigate and work your way through.
Yeah, and as a real estate agent, like that would be definitely probably something, like I said, that I think is really important. It's probably the one missing step I find. For example, I had a property, we had multiple offers on Monday evening. My client was able to select somebody that they wanted to proceed with. Now, and that's probably a good thing to sort of discuss as well, because we can actually write contracts online as well, and they're sent electronically. So different to when somebody would have, probably sat down at your office or as the buyer, and then that contract, I've heard of stories, or I've even seen my team, jump in the car and it goes to be signed. That can all just happen so quickly now, can't it, with electronic platforms?
Yeah. And with that, there is the expectancy now that it happens quicker.
Yes.
So there is that pressure sometimes to make a decision quickly.
Absolutely.
We definitely, if they understand, if we're able to help them understand the process.
I think that's great as well. And even just things like the access a buyer has to a cooling off period as well in Queensland. So certainly there are those things that's just really important for them to step through. I mean, we both know the size of a contract, and obviously just getting a link to digitally sign it, I'm sure, I would hope, Beck, that people have read through every term and condition, right, of a contract. Yes. I'm sure you would advise that.
Yes.
And in your contract review. Is there any other insights or anything like that for our listeners in all things property and estate law?
In all things property and estate law. We could be here for a very long time. No, I'm happy to discuss any questions, anything that anyone has or would like answered. And I think willing to give my time.
Amazing. And I think what I love most about you is that with that process, confidentiality is always assured. Like we said, these are really sensitive matters, and having someone in your corner, especially with your not just expertise but your passion, and especially that, like you said, you're such a niche team as well, that obviously all support each other and your clients. Yes. Amazing. Beck, I would love to round out, like I do with every interview, with your favourite quote or saying, if you've got one.
So life is like a camera. Focus on what's important, capture the good times, develop from the negatives, and if it doesn't work out, take another shot.
Hey, I like that. That is a beautiful sentiment. Beck, thank you once again for your time. I know we are coming into the afternoon, which is settlement time frame for your team. Yes. So we'll let you go. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond the Signboard. We trust you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it for you. If there are any topics you want covered in the future, make sure you reach out and let us know. Also, feedback and suggestions are appreciated, almost as much as likes, shares and downloads.